Hello, I'm Jenny Klochko and you are watching my podcast, and today we carry on exploring the resistance movement in Ukraine. So today I talk to Djohar. He's the representative of the partisan movement Atesh. And please follow our conversation and don't forget to ask or add something in the comments below. I'll be very grateful for that. Djohar, вітаю. Як ваші справи сьогодні?
Good day, I am great.
Чи можу я запитати вас, де ви знаходитеся, в якій частині України, якщо це в Україні?
It is Ukraine.
Djohar, Wikipedia says Atesh means fire. And it was, this partisan movement was founded at the beginning of 2022. Is this correct?
Atesh was founded after the full-scale invasion in summer 2022 in Crimea, among the Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians, who supports Ukraine. Why Atesh? As I mentioned before, in Turkic languages, it means fire. The movement was created based on the vision that something needs to be done. We can't sit and wait. So the united small group of people started a movement which is known today as Atesh. Also, the announced mobilization in autumn 2022 in Russia helped it a lot. We successfully used it.
How important was the military background of the first participants of your resistance movement?
Of course it is important, but we did not have a lot of people with military experience. We used what we had to learn and educate ourselves, invited people who had some experience, so we had what we had.
How important was Atesh is clearly a connection to the Crimean Tatars, but how important for you to consolidate Ukrainian, Russians and Crimean Tatars? Was it natural or there was on purpose to connect these two people who were fighting Putin's regime and this brutal war?
It was impossible to predict any sort of success or productive unity of these ethnic groups. We realized it during our successful operations and the experience we gained with Russians who joined us. As for Ukrainians and the Crimean Tatars, we expected their teamwork.
But why Russians? Are these Russians from the occupied territories or the Russians from Russia, the territory of Russian Federation?
It depends. Usually it is people from the territory of the Russian Federation. Also, we have a few examples in Crimea. Usually it is the Russians who do not support Putin and his war. We have representatives of all kinds.
What measures do you use against potential FSB agents?
FSB is very active. They try to penetrate among our agents. It is a challenge for us. There is a serious chunk of work to identify them. There are a lot of examples to prove it, but the cases that we shared on our social media happened in spring 2023. It was Donetsk region near Mariupol. Russian secret services pretending being Rosgvardia, Russian guard forces, they created so-called secret, and they tried penetrating our movement like soldiers of this force. This attempt failed because we have a group of experts among our people who understands what is going in Russian armed forces and identified them. We shared this case on social media, and it proves what effort Russians are prepared to make and resources to use for these operations. Because to make this cover believable, they used lots of ammunition and armored vehicles. It was a group of 5 people, so lots of effort from their side. We have many cases like this one. This one is very impressive. Usually, they pretend to be the ordinary civilians from the occupied territories and trying to figure out what exactly we are interested in. Naturally, we have own security checks and trying to identify these people. Also, important not to introduce new members with our so-called old agents who work with us quite some time, avoiding to compromise their safety. Also, Russians do a lot of administrative work with the assistance of the Secret Service personnel and the mobile companies, particularly in Crimea. They use the technical intelligence to identify potential agents of ATESH and pro-Ukrainian citizens who help Ukraine's armed forces. Also, we know from our sources that Russians increased the number of the Secret Service agents in Crimea, particularly FSB, but not only them. They create new units. They bring from Moscow new units. Their main focus, such places as Jankoy and Saki, where lots of military infrastructure and noticeable our activity. That's why Russians build up their intelligence capabilities to stop us.
Do you coordinate your actions with Ukrainian authorities, or maybe some missions?
Our agents are our biggest asset. Ukrainian secret services submitting certain requests, we supply some wanted information. For example, we cooperated on the successful operation in Harbor Kavkaz on Kerch Bay. It was in a few stages. The first phase was the end of May, beginning of June. The first attack, the last time, was at the end of August. Yes, this summer, the oil tanks were destroyed and the ferry crossing, it sank. Our agent was reporting since last year what ammunition and when was arriving there. When oil delivered. His videos and information helped us to understand the logistics of the harbor, and we conducted the successful operation, and the harbor Kavkaz is severely damaged. Ukraine's armed forces were grateful for our valuable input.
Це все в цьому році відбувалося.
Так, це все крайнє літо.
Looking at your Wikipedia page, Atesh Wikipedia page, it's quite an impressive list of the successful operations. How important for you to publicize your attachment? Because on one hand, you make yourself quite known in media space, but at the same time, it's increased pressure and risk for your participants, for your partisans.
We are aware of all the risks. That's why we are very careful what we publicize on our social media platforms. We understand that without media coverage of our activity, it's almost impossible. Our success helps to raise awareness in Ukraine, international community, Russians and people on the occupied territories. Our public profile attracts new members and actively spread everywhere. We always try to balance between publicity and safety of our agents. If the risk is too high, and Russians very likely will start counterintelligence actions, we won't publish it, or will publish with a very substantial delay, sometimes between 6 months or even a year.
Your peculiarity, your as a partisan movement, is that you are destroying Russia's army from inside, and it's quite interesting. Why did you decide to hit exactly on this aspect? Is it because you have the majority of your people within inside of Russian army, or there are other reasons?
When we started our activity, Russia has announced semi-mobilization. Our agents were mobilized, so Russia mobilized own enemies. Our people became part of the Russian army, and it became handy to organize sabotages. It was very effective. The number of our agents has grown, and most of them are not part of the Russian armed forces. It doesn't stop us to increase the number of Russian soldiers in Atesh. We use both approaches to destroy the enemy, inside and outside its personnel. To destroy from the inside, it was our first step because of the circumstances.
What role women or girls play in your partisan movement? Because it's quite violent and it's high risk, and we both understand how risky and what the consequences can be for women if she's caught.
We have a lot of work in our partisan movement. We have violent and non-violent activities. We have a non-violent branch it calls civil force, where people can express their protest and their role in partisan movement via spreading the leaflets in Kaliningrad Oblast, other cities of Russian Federation, and in Crimea. There are hundreds of them. We are managing to spread this propaganda. People visually can see that the resistance is going on around them, and there are a lot of people like that. They are welcoming join the new members. Also, we are punishing the Z patriots who demonstrate their support for Putin's regime and the war publicly. Women are very active among our members. Female members are very good for intelligence. They are equally good at it with men.
Let's go through your successful missions, at least some of them, because every year, looking at the list, it's this year, the previous year, 2022, that was quite impressive.
We have different level of operations. Some of them are tactical and some are strategical. There are very impressive strategic operations. We had so many of them in Kherson region. As for the tactical, then it is our intelligence activity with agents and the people on the occupied territories. The attack on the Black Fleet headquarters is a good example of joined efforts. Also the attack on the submarine Rostov and the landing ship Minsk. As for tactical operations, there were many of them. The most interesting was named Ukrainian Night in April last year. It was in Kherson region. Our agent in the occupation managed to establish close relationships with Russian soldiers who were regularly drunk and terrorized local civilians and used forbidden substances. We had the photograph of that thing. Then we removed it. So our agent waited when they were under those chemicals, got asleep, and exterminated 2 Russians and took their weapons and hid it. Also, we had a lot of explosions on the railways and set on fire the intelligence station. We destroyed complex R1-61. It happened in June 2022. Russians brought the radio location complex outside the village in Kherson region. Our agent noticed it, and the security was lousy and burned it. It's one of the tactical operations. Also, we had an interesting case in Genechesk, near the old patrol station. Russians regularly had their halt there. They would leave their armored vehicles there. So our intelligence noticed it, and when it's got dark, our agent left handmade explosive device there. It exploded, 3 injured, 1 dead, and a damaged lorry. Also, in Kherson region, we attacked the whole bunch of military lorries. Interesting operation was last year at the end of August, when Russians had their so-called elections in the occupied territories. We cooperated with armed forces of Ukraine to attack the headquarters of Putin's party, Yedinaya Rossiya, in Novokakhovka. The drone was used for it. We destroyed 3 Russian soldiers and all the documents for the so-called elections. We know it was not even close to what we would have called elections. They would fake numbers anyway. We had conducted operation to prove the point. As for strategic operations, we gather intelligence on all strategic locations, air bases like Jankoy, Kacha, Saki, Belbek, Kerchbridge. We attacked these locations many times. The strategic intelligence stations were attacked in the southern Crimea. It was built in Soviet times, and Russians used it to intercept Ukrainian drones and missiles. As I mentioned earlier, the submarine and the landing ship were severely damaged. We helped the numerous attacks on the air bases in Jankoy and Saki.
Does the Crimean bridge bothers you, and do you plan something to destroy it once and forever?
It's a difficult question. We do our best. We constantly watching it, gather intelligence, report to the Ukraine's armed forces on everything what's going on there. All the vital technical information and what Russians do to protect this bridge. We report on the location of the air defense systems S-300 and S-400 around the Crimean bridge. We are monitoring it non-stop. There were 2 attacks on the bridge. I am sure there will be a 3rd attack, and hopefully fatal one. We want to destroy it forever. We are doing our best to help this process.
What kind of support would you like to have for your partisan movement from the Western community and people who are watching this interview right now?
People in our friendly countries can help our resistance movement by spreading the word on social media, following and commenting us. Regularly discuss aid for Ukraine in their countries and communities, and political party they support in the parliaments. It is needed to pressure on the government of their countries to increase the aid for Ukraine. Let not forget, Ukraine fights for the whole civilized world. We hope for their support very much. It is necessary to have the information support from the citizens and the mainstream media. It helps to increase the number of our agents, so we could plan and conduct new operations destroying the Russian army from inside and its infrastructure.
How about technical or financial support?
It is important, but Ukraine needs more. We receive support from some people. It is enough for us at this point.
Today I talked to Djohar, the representative of partisan movement Atesh. Please share your thoughts, your ideas with me in the comments. And I hope that was interesting for you. And I hope you will support and help to spread the word about this brave partisans. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget, like, share, subscribe. And thank you for your time, for being here and for listening it. And you can't imagine what joy brings me, your comments. And obviously I read all of them. I reply most of them. Thank you very much.